But Neil, our next guest on TSB is Charu Sharma.
Well, yes, a man who probably is one of the most well-researched, someone who understands almost every sport on this planet, someone who has been the voice of cricket and many other sports for the Indian audience. Charu Sharma joins us. Welcome to TSB, Charu sir.
Thank you so much, Neil. You've been very kind, very generous. I do follow a lot of sports, but I wouldn't call myself the best researcher. I just love sport. What can I say?
Well, I mean, see, the love of sport makes us do a lot of things, doesn't it?
It does. I'm glad because, the more you follow, the more you appreciate the wider one's perspective. That's all.
It's very much true. The more you get into a subject, the more you realise how little you know about it.
I agree. Hey, that's one of my favorite phrases, by the way. The more you know how little you know.
Yeah,
something like that.
Exactly. Look, it's great to have you on the show. We've seen the Indian cricket side last night, went down to Australia.
Oh, no. Well, you're not going to go there, are you? Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, we have India versus Australia every single day on our show. Kitch is from Australia, and I face it every day. And this evening when Kitch walked into the studio, he was dancing. I've never seen him so animated.
Enjoy it when you can.
Yeah, Neil, all you need to do is to tell him along right now. Do quote Arnold Schwarzenegger's most famous line.
I'll be back.
Yeah. What? The Indian team
I thought it was going to be, if you're taking Australia, get to the chopper, get out of there.
That too.
But look, what did you think of last night's match? Did you think maybe we could see a change soon and have Virat Kohli back to the opening position?
No, I don't think it's the batting positions. I think the Indian batting is doing just fine. I mean, how did he demote Rahul after what he did yesterday? Neither, of course, the captain Rohit Sharma. So I think that's a pretty settled opening combination for India. But they can play around. I mean, the truth is that if you're a top-order batsman, you've got to be ready to go anywhere from 1 to 6. And you can't really be hanging on to a position because, I mean, you could be number 4 and go in the third ball of the innings. So you can't say I'm not an opener.
True.
I think the top order is fairly well settled. You score on some days and some days you don't. I mean, there's no guarantee. There are machines. But it's in the bowling department, both for Australia as well as India, where they were under strength for various reasons. I don't know, Australia may be resting people. Maybe there are injuries. India was certainly resting their top bowlers. So in the bowling department, you will see plenty of change by the time the World Cup comes up. So I don't think we should pillory the bowlers who were there. It was a batting strip. It was a small ground, quick outfield. Runs were scored by both the teams. Once one team scored just a few too many. But it was a fabulous match, and I'm sure the fans loved it, and the world of cricket loved it. High-scoring games are always great. There were a few wickets taken as well, so there's something for the bowlers, but much more a batter's game yesterday.
No, definitely. We've known Mohali to produce such amazing high-scoring games. But considering the fact that Bhuvneshwar Kumar and the tries with the 19th over, last 3 games, what he's delivered in the 19th, as a bowler, doesn't it come back and haunt you?
Of course it does. If you could have a meter on him or something, you could probably feel him quivering. Or his blood pressure must have been, through the charts. But it's a tough job to bowl at the death, especially when there are a couple of batsmen who are legitimate. Wade did a fabulous job, and he's a tricky batsman to bowl at because he moves around so much. Bhuvi's not the quickest. I mean, he did try and bowl plenty of Yorkers in that over. It didn't quite work out for him because what do you do at the end? He doesn't quite have the pace to trouble anyone. So he's going to bowl those Yorkers, which is probably the most difficult ball to bowl in cricket, and you're bound to miss it. You bowl a low full toss or bowl a length ball, you get dispatched for 6.
All right.
And on a small ground, it will go for 6 instead of getting caught. So, I wouldn't like to blame only Bhuvi. I think the rest of the Indian bowlers as well. Akshar Patel bowled really well.
He did.
But that's the middle over. See, if Akshar had bowled similarly, over number, 16, 18, 20, he might have gone for 50 runs as well.
I'm sure.
That's just the nature of the beast of a T20 game.
No, that's so true. We've been talking about T20 games, and I will take the conversation away from India versus Australia to this one T20 great who was born on today's day, Chris Gayle. Your memories of this giant killer, Chris Gayle?
Oh, the universe boss man. Well, he played in Bangalore for many years, and I had plenty of brushes with him. I think the first major T20 traveling global league star. For sure. I mean, one wouldn't take him into the side for fielding, especially towards the end. But he could bowl a bit. He was all right. And, of course, I mean, you talked about Bhuvi yesterday, and I said maybe he was quivering and shaking. When you're bowling against Chris Gayle, at any point of time, anywhere, the bowlers do quiver because, I mean, just slightly off on length or line, and he would clobber you. And he would get those runs very quickly. Although late in his career, mind you, if you saw, he was a very careful starter. And you'd find him, 15 balls, 7 runs, and people wonder what's going on. And then, of course, he start unleashing and get to whatever, 70, 18, 40. So he did change his style a bit. And I just think the long levers were a great help. And the fearlessness, because he realized that in T20, very early, the bowlers were severely handicapped. Right. And so he would just stand and deliver, or maybe take one step forward and deliver the short ball too. And it was just a question of fitness. If you keep himself fitter and less injured, he would score twice as many runs. But let's not take away the fact that he, I think, was the first global T20 batting star.
We talked, Charu, about what his reputation was like. He did have a reputation of loving a good time and always being a party boy wherever he was. But to give an insight, what was his professionalism like? What was he in and around, like around the side, the way he looked after his game and the way he mentored young people? Was it different to that party boy image that we know?
Well, that was after the game. I think he was professional enough to know that, inside the field you deliver. So I'm not suggesting at white line fever that as soon as he walked into the ground, he was like, business. He still used to kid around quite a bit. But that's not such a bad thing. You talk about being a party boy and off the field, who are we to try and decide what is good behavior and what is not? I mean, it's very individual. But I don't think he trained quite as much as the rest, which is a bit of a problem because, these days it's all about athleticism and training. I don't think he was top of the pops there. But, sometimes it's nice to have, not sometimes, every time it's nice to have different people in the dressing room. Some people are serious, some people like Chris Gayle, they play the fool, they make sure that, well, not the fool really, they kid around quite a bit, they keep the atmosphere light because T20 is a very intense game and people say it's only 20 overs a side, but let me tell you, the intensity is ridiculous. And to have somebody in the side who can kind of just lighten the atmosphere and make people believe it's only a match, it's only a day, relax, enjoy yourselves. You will win some, you will lose some. It's nice to have somebody like that in the team as well, and Chris Gayle certainly was that.
No doubts about that. But then also, if we just go back from Chris Gayle's era to not a generation, but probably a decade back, there was a menacing bowler who again celebrates his birthday today, Curtly Ambrose. Your thoughts on him?
Curtly man, all of 59. A gentle giant. Man, did he look menacing. I mean, he was a silent killer. Not much given to talk, by the way. And I believe there was even a time earlier on in his life, in the early 90s or whatever, when there was an interview going on, he said, Curtly, talk to no man. But yeah, he was a silent customer, just a fabulous bowler. Of course, the height helped a lot. He was certainly athletic. Got his share of injuries. Mm-hmm. But, for instance, the very famous Perth match where I think he got 7 wickets for only 1 run. Very difficult bowler to score runs off, without question. If I remember correctly, his 400-odd wickets in test matches cost him at less than 21 apiece, which is magnificent. I mean, for any bowler anywhere. I remember Bob Willis, the late, once I was talking to him, doing a personal interview, I think in the late 90s, and he just retired, Bob Willis. And I said, Bob, any regrets? And he said, yeah, 1. And, he meant it too. He said, in the fast bowlers club, we have a thing about an average of 25. And he said, I will forever regret that my average in test match cricket per wicket was just over 25. I couldn't break into that club. Now, in light of that, you see Curtly Ambrose below 21. You can imagine just how difficult he was as a bowler for even the best batsman in the world. So that, it's not just the wickets, but I think the fact that he was very mean, people couldn't quite get him away because of his height, the steepling bounce. All of that helps. Now you use your natural gifts to advantage, and he did. At 6'7", ran in quick, bowled sharp, made the ball, cock up from length. What else do you want in a bowler? No, and a team man too. And that partnership with Walsh, wow, man, that was some deadly combination.
Well, Charu, you touched on one point that I find hilarious. I love Sir Curtly Ambrose. But you're right, during his playing days, he never said a word. It was always, Curtly speaks to no one. And then in every interview I've ever seen after retirement, you can't shut him up. He does not stop talking at all. He even went to Australia and was on a reality TV show called Dancing with the Stars. I'm just a complete 180 from his cricket career.
Yeah, it's almost like we're suggesting he was repressed during his cricket career. No, I just think he focused a lot. I mean, he was a team man, but he didn't say much. Even within the team, he didn't say much. I mean, you're talking about Chris Gayle, who plays, the light-hearted guy. Curtly didn't. He was a very serious kind of young man. And by the way, as we all know, he could have been a big basketball star till his mother said, well, hang on, stay home, play some cricket. It's strange. I think another case, by the way, is Navjot Singh Sidhu. For whatever it's worth, he never spoke a word. I mean, just, a silent, kind of quiet, introverted individual while he was playing. He played for quite a few years for India. And then once he stopped playing, again, as you said, you couldn't shut him up. But Curti was fun. I last met him during the World Cup in 2019 in England. I was there for some work for BBC, and we had a little one-on-one with him for the show that I do for BBC. And he was, fun, happy to chat, had a wonderful sense of humor, and played up to the part of being, the big bad, sort of 6'7" bully. And I said, Curtly, if I'm going to ask you whatever I did, I forget now. You promise you won't beat me up, will you? He said, well, I can't promise that. Just a lot of fun. Yeah.
No, absolutely. In fact, to actually think of all of these guys, in the field, obviously, yes, that they can joke around and have fun. But when they're at their serious best, bowling what they were bowling back then with very little protection that was, with the helmets that were available there, a lot of credit has to go to the fearless batters who face them time and again.
Well, of course. I mean, especially something like Curtly, because what you don't fear is quick bowling. What one fears is the fact that the ball rears up at times when you don't expect it to, from length. And that's when it gets you on your fingers and thumb and wrist and elbows and stuff. And that's really dangerous and painful. A short ball, then you can actually see, you can avoid it. People get hit on the head because they don't quite know how to duck anymore or of course, miss the pull. But it's that steepling bounce that you get from areas where you don't expect bounce, which is the dangerous part in the game. And and that's why you fear bowlers like Ambrose, because you're not thinking aggressively. You're thinking, oh my God, is this one going to bounce? Is the next one going to bounce and hit me somewhere? So the big fast bowlers are always tough to face. But these days there is a fair amount of protection, especially in limited overs cricket. Bowlers are so hamstrung on, they can't bowl here, can't bowl there, can't bowl short. But Test match cricket, that's where the faster bowlers particularly, they like that arena because they're unfettered. And somebody like Ambrose, boy, I mean, he could hurt people. He had that reputation, of course, of being a little sort of mean and surly, which, as we know, is untrue, as it was proved once he retired. But that kind of a bowler makes you fear the bowler even more because you think he's out to hurt me.
Right.
So, what can you say?
Well, it's been great to get your insights on two of the greats born on this day, Sir Curtly Ambrose and also Chris Gayle. Excuse me, Charu Sharma, thank you very much for joining us on TSB TalkSport Business.
You're most welcome, guys. Thanks so much for getting in touch with me. I can now go back to my tennis. All the best.
Well, good luck in your tennis. There he is. He's known for doing everything from commentating, compare, quiz mastering, even into cricket administration. Charu Sharma, and don't you love his voice? Syrupy and fantastic.
Brilliant. I mean, I've known him for a very, very long time. I remember 2007 World Cup was when we actually started interacting. First time I was with my radio station in Bombay, and Charu Sharma was our in-house expert, where we would call him after every game, and the games were in West Indies. Every time I used to speak to him, the insight was phenomenal, obviously, yes, but the voice, velvety smooth voice, and that information about cricket just helped us forget all that debacle that was the 2007 World Cup for India.
Just a remarkable commentator he is. You're on TSB, Talk Sport Business on Talk.